Welcome to episode 5 of Music Magic with Chick Corea. We have a very special program for you today as Chick talks with his duet partner, banjo player extraordinaire Bela Fleck. This podcast was recorded recently while they were out on tour in Boulder, Colorado. And just one quick plug. If you're a musician, you're going to want to check out the upcoming live, online, and interactive Chick Corea Music Workshop on Saturday and Sunday, March 29th and 30th. You can check out all the details at chickkoreamusicworkshops.com. And now, over to Chick and Bela.
What do you think, Bela? You think we ready for chat? Would you like an apple or an orange or?
I'm good. I'm even going to put my phone on stun, so nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing extracts me.
Yeah. This is I don't know what to call this. We haven't fully named this yet. So it's going to be a podcast. Obviously, there's no cameras here, so this is internet radio.
Hotel Room Chats, Volume 1.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't we do a chat?
We did a video chat, yeah.
That's right.
In fact, I have the footage somewhere. I have to get it to you.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I remember that now, yeah. So we're getting ready to gear up this Chick Corea Music Workshop. It's a total experiment. You know, I've done a few master classes and trying to figure out how to be friendly with the musicians of the planet and share what we have, you know.
I'd like to be your first pupil.
Well,
I'm willing to pay big money.
Well, the thing is, I think a lot of musicians and fans and people would be just interested in hearing a chat. I mean, you know, we're out on the road now for. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is Bela Fleck, and I'm Chick. That's Bela over there.
Hi.
Yeah, just to identify, we're in Boulder, Colorado, in a hotel room. We played in Denver last night. We played in
Fort Collins the night before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tonight in Boulder, and tomorrow we're going to Berkeley, California. We're on a little tour.
Yeah, 5 days. 5 days, 5 shows.
Yeah.
Finishing up in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a lot of people, some musicians who are familiar with being on the road and doing more than like a couple of gigs, but being really on tour, kind of know, you get to experience what it's like moving around and playing every night. But I think a lot don't know that experience.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways that you could tell about it. Maybe we could talk about that just a little bit, you know, how do you think about it? You've been touring for your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way I get to play the music, and it's the way I get to play enough to really feel like a complete musician, play the songs every day, you know, day after day, get inside of them in a different way, and pacing yourself during those days is a real important part of the whole trip, because you can't show up tired. You know, it's like the whole day is sort of geared to getting you onto the stage feeling at your best. Like that's the time. Any other time, it doesn't matter, you know, if you feel, you know, where you're at. But when it's time to be on stage, you have to be at your best. So I'm always trying to figure out, and sometimes I spend too much time, you know, tripping on how I can be in my best. Sometimes like practicing is the worst thing I can do to be good on stage, and sometimes it's the best thing. It's like a moving target. Like some days it's like, wow, if I had played that a bunch more, I would have done better at the show. And other days it's like, well, I played all my good stuff in the practice room in my hotel or backstage, and when I got on stage I didn't have anything left to offer to the songs, you know.
So there's no way to judge that. It's
a moving target, and so I think in the end you have to figure out what feels good to you, what's a nice way to have your day, you know, and keep assessing and making adjustments based on what you experience, which of course is subjective. And unless you're willing to like study the shows every night and try and assess yourself, I think that's actually going to make you a worse that might make you worse at playing the music, possibly, because
depends. You know, when I was touring with the Electric Band, Dave Weckl used to do that. And he used to swear by that's the way to improve.
Yeah,
he used to put a tape recorder by his drums and record the whole band every night, and then listen religiously on the bus. And correct things. Anyway, yeah, it's interesting. I used to do that a little bit. I haven't done that in a while.
I think sometimes I think everyone needs to spend some time doing that. There has to be some period where you're doing that. But at a certain point, like the older I get, I think the time away from the music gives me more energy and more ideas than spending part of that, like there's the 4 hours at the gig where you're really in the music, even though it's, maybe ends up being 2.5, and getting there and then getting back to your hotel or traveling and everything. And so for me, I'm finding now that it's really good for me to have a break and come back fresh, especially if it's music I've played a lot. Mm-hmm. That freshness is worth more than the studying, because that studying brings an anxiety and a worry sometimes that isn't helpful, or it might even lock me into something great I did the night before. Oh, wow, what a great solo I played on, whatever. And then the next day, instead of playing freshly and freely, I start trying to play what I played the other day.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then I get stuck.
Yeah.
Where if I just stay relaxed and open, sometimes with a lot of improvising music like what we're doing, that's the game.
Yeah. Yeah, last night there was we're just jumping around, ladies and gentlemen, as you can tell, but it's fun. Last night, the second set especially, we did a lot of just improvising, open sections and stuff. I enjoy that. I sometimes worry that we're going to lose the audience, but I think we had their attention the whole time.
Yeah, well, I think if we're intrigued, they're likely to be intrigued.
Hopefully.
Especially if there's only 2 people on stage. There's our interaction is very important, that we're having the experience too. Because then it translates. We're with a bigger band with, it's like with 4 or 5 guys on stage, it's almost like if, I don't know, it's not as intimate. The intimacy of 2 people on stage really vibing into each other's trips is contagious. And if we're having a great time, I think they are. Yeah.
I like those free open sections. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Rather than trying to figure it out. Yeah, but we played this set. I don't know how many times, but a bunch of times.
Yeah.
The set that we're playing, and I still look forward to it. I still think because you sort of balance the motions. The way I look at it is you balance the emotions and the motions of a set. Like you try and go faster or slower, or it's like telling a story. You don't want to go into the same rate of speed. You got to slow down at some point,
right,
and say one thing, and then move on. So the way we choose the vehicles, the songs that we're going to do help change the mood and tell a story for the set.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the first set is like we're playing the music of the record that we created, and we're sort of setting out, here's what our duet is, and then the second set we come out and we kind of change the whole game. We'll say, no, now we're going to play a classical song, we're going to play a brand new song, here's a free improv, here's a Stevie Wonder cover.
Yeah.
And I like that idea that the second set is almost more of a workshop and it's very open.
Yeah.
Because we've already presented like the kind of the overarching theme of what we kind of created on our duet record and from previous tours. But second set, hey, here's a new tune. We tried a brand new tune of mine 2 nights ago, and we might do another one tonight. We'll see.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
And I'm trying to learn some of your other pieces, the children's songs and things like that, because I think it's all really important with a duo. Well, anybody who's playing together a lot, to find ways to have new material. But like what you're saying is interesting, because like you do so many different things that like when we play a song we've played a bunch of times, it's not the same song.
Right.
It's different every time. And going on that ride is completely satisfying for me. Still, I'm not tired of any of it. There's still a lot of nooks and crannies to be explored and different ways to play it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's a lot of ways to cut it. I mean, we both like to improvise. We both like to compose music.
Right.
There's a satisfaction in. I see composition sometimes as a like the making of a game. You decide what rules, what tempo. Are we going to follow some kind of pattern or not? What kind of patterns? You kind of set up a few loose rules or tight rules or whatever. Like, for instance, the tightest piece we played on the whole show last night was Henri Dutilleux's Prelude.
Right.
And we played it practically note for note.
Right. And the game there is to play those notes, with feeling and precision and beauty. and it's not a game. The game on that song is not how can we improvise, or if we improvise, we're only going to improvise with the feel and the tone and the coloring, but we're not going to introduce new notes necessarily.
No, we played the written notes pretty good last night. They're a really nice set of written notes too. That's why it's enjoyable.
But then the other games, like where the one part of the game might be what time signature are we in? Are we in 3/4? Are we in 6/8? Are we?
Oh, yeah.
What's the tempo? Another factor of each game of what the song is what key is it in? What is the harmonic basic rules of it? Because that's what makes every song different from each other. Is exactly what you're talking about. I think it's a great way to look at it.
Right. Yeah. So in composing, you go, well, the show's doing this, so maybe we could use a little bit more of that.
Right.
And so you go and you write a little piece.
Look for what's missing, or what isn't happening.
Yeah, that's right.
And if that doesn't happen in the compositions, then you can do it in your improvisations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you feel like the music is fast too long, you can start playing that fast song with a whole lot of space, and it fixes it.
See, everybody out there, that's the answer to composing and improvising. Okay, what should we talk about now? No, actually, I had that on my list. I said, well, what should we talk about? I wrote down 4 things. I wrote down duetting, which we talked about, composing, improvising, and teaching. We talked about teaching a little bit with evaluation and criticism and all of that. I don't know. Pick a subject.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. I mean, evaluation and criticism at the same time as you're being open and free, it's like they're almost different sides of you. You need them both. So
now you're speaking about what?
Either like
teaching someone, or
even in yourself, because I feel like I'm always a student.
Right.
Like I'm a lifetime student, and so I'm always trying to figure out how to, do it all better. And I'm also, a lot of it hasn't been done on the banjo, and I haven't had the kinds of training a lot of people have when I play the kinds of music I play. Like I haven't had any classical training or jazz training. I'm just trying to figure it out. But the critical side of myself is really important. It's really important because not everything I do is the way I want it to be yet. I want to solo better. I want to write better. I want to do all that stuff. But when we go on stage to play, that critical side is the worst thing I can bring on stage with me in the world. That's when I have to embrace everything that's played and justify it or look for a way to, enhance it. But I'm not going to be up there going, oh, why did I play that note? Or instead I'm going to go, oh, that was an interesting note I played. Maybe I'll play it again. So that openness it's like when you're editing yourself, it's a different. Then you get critical, and we go back and you're saying, okay, now, but you can't bring that on the bandstand. You have to go on stage with that open acceptance, because that's how you make something great out of whatever happens.
Yeah, I agree with that. What about when another musician asks you a question or wants you to take them as a student? Or sometimes what happens to me is a musician will want me to evaluate.
Right.
For them, they'll play something and they want me to criticize it.
Right.
They want me to say, well, that was really bad, and you could improve here. They're expecting, I don't know, got brought up somehow expecting a certain kind of way of training and teaching that has to do with a strictness of some kind. I wondered what your view was and all of that.
Well, I don't think there's ever a really good reason to be unkind to anybody, but honesty is something that's sort of earned. Everybody doesn't deserve your complete, 100% honesty. A stranger doesn't necessarily need for you to tell them that you didn't think they played something well. You don't. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm just throwing this out for a conversation.
Well, how about this? What about the fact that the student has an intention, or should have an intention, that to want to improve and learn something? The teacher, I think, whoever is helping the student, should the best intention I can think of is to help the guy.
Right.
Is to help him achieve whatever goals that he's got.
Right.
So if that's the flow, then the question is, how do you do that? Do you strictly hit the guy with, nah, that wasn't that great?
Right. Well,
and there's some extreme cases of that where if you see friends that come to you and they tell you their sad story about why they gave up playing, if you trace it back, a lot of times you find out that it was from some incredible heavy criticism that they got early on, being told they had no talent or
Right.
Something like that, you know.
Well, I think there's some unkindness in it. Sometimes it's not necessary. But I actually am a big fan of honesty, you know, even though I was sort of taking the other side there for a second. I'm a big fan of telling people something, but maybe you don't have to be blunt. And maybe, you know, you might hear somebody and not think it's so bad, and they think it's so bad. And you go, hey, well, you know, you may not have made those changes, but you did this other thing that was really cool. You can be very positive and very supportive while also speaking the truth. And you can find, if you get to know somebody for a while, and you can figure out, you know, what they can take, you know, and how much truth they can take, and
how thick the skin is,
yeah,
what they say.
But I mean, I have some friends that I can be that honest with, you know. I mean, like me and Edgar Meyer, for instance, we're like brothers, the brothers that can argue and fight a little bit, and it's cool, and we actually appreciate it because, like Victor Wooten, who I also love like a brother, we don't really have a relationship where we poke at each other or even criticize each other, and it's sweet. It's a sweet, great relationship, and we also grow a lot as musicians together. But with Edgar, it's a different relationship, and we talk about. He likes to talk about stuff, so we talk a lot.
Yeah,
and then we get into, you know, why don't you try this? Okay, and we like it.
Yeah,
we get off on, you know, just the truth, you know, trying to really see if we can propel each other. But that's just the nature of our relationship, and I appreciate having someone in my life that will tell me dead out what he thinks.
Yeah.
It's never unkind, but it's just more straight up, you know.
I get it. You know, I always find that the hardest thing to accomplish, or the most delicate thing to try and accomplish when you're trying to help someone, is just how to help them.
Yeah.
How to really help them. Like, how do you evaluate how critical to be, how uncritical, how much this way, how much that way. And that's the trick of it, because if I'm going to spend my time trying to help some students, I want to see the result. And to me, the result would be that they have more certainty and more confidence about what they're doing and feel inspired to go on doing it. Now, if I get a comment like that, then I think, wow, that was pretty good result.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So I try to judge. It's tricky how to do that. I mean, earlier when you mentioned the term training, you say you didn't have any classical training
or jazz training. Or,
The thought I had when you said that was, that's great. Because, like, in a sense, training, quote unquote, in music applies stricture and constriction. Training. Do it this way. You know, when you train, it depends on the kind of training you get. But the usual training is training into a certain mold.
Right.
And everything that we're trying to do as musicians, it seems to me, is trying to help someone get out of some kind of fixed mold into a creative frame of mind, and where they trust their own imaginations and they can go ahead and explore the way they react to life and so forth.
Yeah, and I think I definitely appreciate the areas where my lack of training has given me personality, you know, have made me more myself. But, you know, I do wish I could look at a piece of paper and sight read it. I do wish I understood more about harmony, so when you went wild into the crazy stuff, I had a little better chance of coming up with something that complemented it. So there's two sides to all of these things, you know. But the training side of it, I mean, I just, you know, learning to read music, you know, that was probably a good thing for most people. I really can barely read music, but I found ways to deal with it.
Yeah. But I'll bet that if you put the goal of wanting to read music better at a certain level of importance, and you decided you were going to do that, I'm sure you would do it. It seems to me that needing to read music the way you're envisioning isn't important enough. Otherwise, you would do it.
Right. If it was,
because you were totally capable of doing it.
I figured out all these workarounds, and then now I'm used to them. And so the time it would take for me to get that together would take me time away from being creative. So now I'm like, so I'd rather just keep on working on what I'm working on.
Exactly.
That I'm sort of into now. Than doing that.
See, I was right.
Yeah. Well, you're always right. Yeah.
Well, so are you. Yeah. See, that's the fun of it. Yeah, we're all right. The student is right. The teacher is right. Everybody's right. That's a good place to start, I think. So then you got to compare these rightnesses and see how right is right, because right is not just black and white. It's just how right, and how wrong.
And how right and wrong for one person is totally different from another.
Yeah, and especially in art, and especially in music, because you know, there's always this final thing of that what's true for that individual isn't necessarily true for another individual, or what one musician thinks and admires and thinks is beautiful and wants to attain is not the same as another, and that's what makes the world a multicolored, adventurous game.
It's awesome, actually, because the thing that's hardest to teach is actually for someone to be more like themselves. And that's actually the whole goal of the whole exercise, is how can you be the most you that you can be. If you're going to try and be an artist of any kind, how can you be you?
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily what we talk about when we're talking about learning to play or learning to
Right.
be a musician.
It's hard to talk about it because there isn't a lot of nomenclature in that regard. There's a lot of negative nomenclature, but there's not a lot of personal. But I think that phrase is understood by everybody. Wanting to be more yourself is an understandable thing. To me, that means being certain about your own ideas and not asking for a license to see whether it's okay.
Right.
To just try to get some agreement. You know, you think of something. You think of a tune, or you think of something that sounds nice to you, and now you start to look around to see whether it's okay to do that is not the right way to go.
Right.
Very constraining. So you want to be more yourself, which means you want to be more certain about what your ideas are and just be willing to put them out and accept whatever comes back and do the next thing.
Yeah, and accepting that everybody isn't everything. There might be an area that you are really good at. Like maybe you're really good with rhythm, or you're really good with harmony, or you're somebody who's really into melody or something, and somebody has told you, well, you really got to do this other stuff too, or you have to be complete. But the thing that's really going to, the poetry of you is finding those things that are unique to you, that are natural in your system, in your human system. It's you.
I found one way, for me anyway, that's a monitor of how do you know whether you're being yourself or not, which I think is a pretty simple test, which is what makes you feel good. And what seems simple and true to you, and what makes you just kind of brighten up and smile, and what doesn't seem complex, but it seems, oh, there it is, and you kind of recognize it's simple truth, and you feel good. That I know that when I feel good about it, I think there's something real true about it.
Yeah, I know, like in my little jazz study that I've been doing for my whole life, whenever I hear something that I get excited about, that's a marker for me. If I hear somebody, I'm hearing you play Spain the first time, there's something about it that just hit, or hearing Charlie Parker the first time, it might be a lick, might be a song, it might be a feel, and it's charged me up. And other things I listened to didn't charge me up the same way. So that was a marker there that was something in me reacted to that, and that meant if I investigated it further, there was some juice in there.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, it's the same when you're outflowing. That's inflowing something, and you know what you like. But when you're trying to create something, a way that you do it, no matter whether you struggle with it or not, the way you finally do it is you have to decide which note to put down if you're making a composition, and you'd have to say, well, that's the phrase, and now I'm going to make this phrase come after that, and now these notes are going to go with that note, and now this, and now that, and now that. You have to make all these little and big decisions, and the only way you're going to know how to make those decisions is your own trust of yourself.
It has to feel true or inevitable somehow to you.
Yeah.
When you're writing like that, these are the right notes for this. I just know it. It feels right.
Yeah.
And for me, I find them on the banjo. I'm sitting playing the banjo, and I find a voicing or a melody, and I go, this feels right. This feels like it's supposed to be here. And so now I want to flesh it out. I'm going to use my craft to take that inspired idea and grow it into a whole song that feels like it's supposed to be there for some reason.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that summates the gleeful simplicity of the overall motto of the Chick Corea Music Workshops, which is think for yourself. It's a great motto. I mean, sometimes I lecture on it. The lecture on think for yourself lasts about 5 seconds. It goes, well, think for yourself. And
I have to think about that.
yeah, right. Yeah, let's think. Yeah, well, there you go. You're thinking for yourself. Oh, what do you think, Bela? You got anything you'd like to introduce into the universe at this particular moment in time?
Well, I could go on and on. I mean, I love talking about all this kind of stuff.
Oh, well, let's go on and on.
But you just start, and then pretty soon you're into something good.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I had a question.
sure.
Only because I'm trying to find musicians who I really highly respect, who inspire me, like yourself. I like to ask the question that it seems by survey is one of the most asked questions. How do you improvise? What's that all about? Is that too big a deal to get into, or can we?
No, it's
can
really
we
interesting.
Make a statement on
It's
that.
It's a great discussion. I'd love to know what you think about that, but I'll go first since you asked. Because improvising has something to do with allowing the subconscious mind to take over. I think, and this is something I got, stole that idea from Marcus Roberts, because we talked a lot when we were out touring together, and he talked about how, you talking about inputting and outputting. You input, information, maybe you figure out the game for this particular piece or whatever, but then, like when we talk, we don't spell out the words. You and I talked about this the other day. We don't say, S-A-Y, S-O-M-E-T-H-I-N-G. We don't. We just speak. We're already familiar with the words, and the way they all go together. So when we speak, we just sort of improvise speaking, but we get across the point that's in our mind to each other, and usually pretty elegantly, most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not having any trouble communicating, speaking wise. But when it comes to music, and you set up these games that we're going to go out on stage and play, there's a part of you that is, you're just thinking in terms of broader direction of yourself. You're not thinking, I'm going to play an F sharp here, and then I'm going to play a G, and then I'm going to play an A.
Yeah.
You don't have time for it. It's all coming too fast.
Right.
So somehow you have to get the tools and the comfort to just sort of let it flow, and then sort of follow that line, follow the flow of things, and see where they take you. And the more you can relax and not sweat it, the better it goes.
Well, I see. I'm trying to put myself in the viewpoint of someone who really wants to see how to get started doing this.
Well, I think the best way to get started is like to make a really simple game. Or when I watch my little boy playing the piano, and the game is just to put his hands down wherever he wants, and that's the game. He's making music then.
Yeah.
But you could start with, some people start with a blues scale, but you could start with one note and just play like a kid in the sandbox.
Yeah.
And just play with that note, and then your first game could be to play along with a metronome, but not in time. And your second one could be to add a second note and play just those two notes and just have fun with those two notes.
Yeah.
And gradually work up to something like a pentatonic scale, and having 5 notes you can play around with in different orders as you feel.
Yeah, so many games you could make. I just thought of something when you were trying to work out what would be an exercise or a way a person could get active going with improvisation. And I noticed we both worked with very, very highly skilled and artistic and virtuosic classical musicians who don't have a background in improvising, and who I know when I would ask one who I'm working with, I'd say, well, come on, you can improvise in this section. It's just this sound. And there'd be this incredible reluctance to make a sound,
Right.
even to make a sound, because somehow their sensibilities are so tuned up to what is good music, and they're totally convinced that they can't make it on their own, that they don't want to make a sound. So, in thinking about that, I thought that a good exercise for not only a musician like that, but anyone who wants to kind of get a flow going, like you were talking about, is just not worry about what the music is at a moment, but just start touching your instrument. Just sit down and touch the piano. People come to me and they say, "Oh, I used to play the piano. Yeah, I had a few lessons when I was a kid." I say, "Well, you don't play it anymore?" I say, "No, I don't have much talent for it. Would you like to play? Would you like to be able to play it? Yeah, but I don't think and so forth. So I tell them the first lesson for someone at that level is to, number one, get a piano, right? Getting real practical about it, or a keyboard, and then sit down at it and start making sounds, any kind of sounds. Just like you would test out a new car. You press the accelerator, it goes
get
forward.
familiar with it.
Yeah, get familiar with it. Touch it. Make a sound. Sit on it. Anything. Just get to see that it's just an inanimate object that's built like it's built with all these complex mechanisms, and that there it is in front of you. It has no opinion. The piano has zero opinion. It doesn't think a thing.
And it doesn't judge you.
Yeah, it doesn't judge you, and it won't do anything unless you touch it. So it's a completely open field, and it's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm going to do that myself tonight, as a matter of fact.
I should do that. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, let's go.
That's what I need to do.
Well, there you go, improvising.
Yeah, I think I see that problem with classical musicians as well, which is that the music that they grew up is so revered and so incredible that they're afraid that what they play won't be up to snuff, and so they're afraid to play anything. Yeah, that's a tough problem because you have to give yourself permission to not sound good all the time. You can't sound good all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So you have to give yourself permission and not be mad at yourself because you don't sound good the first time you try to do something.
Yeah, because the sounding good, again, is what you think. The other one is sitting there going, it didn't sound good. Based on what?
Right.
You see, there's another long hook on going in completely the other way on a way to get a focus on that, or to get a monitor by which you can start to judge things like, well, what does sound good and doesn't sound good to you, to the person who's listening, which is to try to get some kind of a handle on why you're doing it. Let's take it right down to the floor, beneath the floor, so under the foundation, to the earth. Take it to the center of the earth, and try to work out, well, why am I doing this? Why do I want to play the piano? If you could really, I guess, if you could really thoroughly answer that question, you wouldn't have that much of a problem of playing it. That's what I would think. You see how there's like an incredible high level, but yet incredible simplicity in that. Like, why are you playing? Like, what is your judgment for what sounds good?
Is it that important to know why? I'm just sitting here racking my brain going, why do I play the banjo? Why do I care about this thing?
All right, you're the guy. You're on the spot.
And I'm struggling with explaining to you exactly why.
Out with it.
I'm from New York City. I'm not a country guy. I just love this instrument. It excites me to have it in my hands.
Boom.
And hear the sounds coming out of it.
Boom.
And I love the information. New information turns me on.
Boom.
And that's my conduit to it. That's the area that I know. So when I get a new Chick Corea lick or tune, or a new Bach phrase or whatever, it activates that pleasure center we were talking about a little while ago.
Wow. So there it is.
And then I get turned on.
Boom.
And I like being turned on. I'd rather be turned on than dulled out watching television.
Boom, boom.
Do you hear a booming sound?
I'm giving you lots of booms because you're exactly answering the question. To me that's a very satisfactory answer, because you love to do it.
Yeah, and I was attracted to it in the beginning too. Like when I heard that sound, it excited me. Yeah,
you don't need a reason for it. I didn't ask you the reason. I asked you just, what's the motivation? Why? You're like, why? And that's the answer. I think, I personally think that probably in some version or another is everyone's answer to why they do something. Well, hopefully. I mean, the really creative answer, not the answer of a slave or a robot, which is, I'm doing this because I must, or because I'm afraid if I don't do it, I'm going to get killed or something. But I'm doing this because I love to do it, because that's what you were saying. I love to do this. I get inspired by that, and boom, boom, boom. And that's the reason why I do it too.
Only thing that I don't understand, and I would ask this question to you, is why would you play the piano when you could play the banjo?
Yeah, well, it's a very simple answer. It's a very simple answer. It's because I hate the banjo. And if it wasn't for loving what you do, I would never go near a banjo for the rest of my life. No. Let's see.
What a coincidence. I hate the piano.
There was a banjo in the back of the car, and the guy locked the door. No, there's a joke about
When he
that.
came back, there were 2 banjos.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of nice. You do it because you like to do it.
I can take the heat. It's the underdog. Like the underdog. You know how jazz can be an underdog? I mean, the banjo is an underdog.
You got it. You win that one,
I
man.
like being part of the underdog, you know. This American, very American instrument that is, you know, the whole story of America and the slaves is tied up in it. Africa, you know, the different mongrel musics that came together on it. The black string bands in the 1910 and Dixieland music and Earl Scruggs and. You know, it's a really American trip.
It's beautiful. I still don't want to play it, but it's a great.
See, I don't understand that. I just can't understand that.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. I love talking to you, and I appreciate you hanging out. We got a gig to go to. I bet we have to relieve Bernie. Hey, Bernie, thanks for setting this up.
You're welcome.
Bernie.
I have one last question, which is, Bernie, you're an engineer. That's not the question. The question is, why do you engineer when you could play the banjo instead?
Yeah, that's a good question. Come on, man, out with it. On the spot, Bernie Kirsch.
You know what? I'll tell you why. Because personally, it gives me a chance to interact with a lot of different music and a lot of different musicians. And I find that pleasurable.
Without having to practice the banjo.
Yeah, I have to practice wires.
There you go.
You have to carry around more stuff than me.
Okay, fading out here in Boulder, Colorado. Thanks, Bela.
Thanks, Chick.
Yeah, later on.
Thanks, Bernie.